I'm so happy that you chose to tap in with us today because I think, have a very special hour ahead of us. I am talking to Noel Eastwood. Welcome, Noel.
Thank you for having me. This
Ah,
will be this will be fun.
it will be fun. So let me introduce you. You are a retired psychologist, and I just want to get my notes. But it's just the concept of being a retired psychologist now having this purpose of sharing mysticism with the world. I find that so noble. And oh, I mean, what could be more meaningful than that? So, a retired psychologist with over 40 years of professional experience in psychology, counseling, and education, now a full-time author. You share your passion for Taoist, alchemy, Jungian psychotherapy, meditation, Tai Chi, astrology, and tarot. Oh man, that's a lot. And I've been, the way that I found you was from your audiobooks. So I've been
Ah,
listening to them and just loving it. And what in particular intrigued me was that I think we're going to speak a lot about today is how to see a diagnosis in the birth chart, like really combining your psychological experience, counseling experience with what we can see in the birth chart. So welcome and wow.
thanks. I hope I can fulfill your expectations because there's a lot there.
There is a lot there. So I wanna I wanna talk to you about a few things, but let me first ask you, did you use astrology as a therapist when you were working as a therapist?
So I started off as a psychotherapist, as clinical hypnotherapy. I used it quite extensive there, and then when I became a psychologist, I couldn't use it. So for a period of about 10, 15 years, I didn't use it. I just focused on my practice. I wanted to be successful at what I was doing as a therapist, and it was just head down, bum up, and go for it. Yeah. So because it was taking me away, astrology is in itself, it can be all consuming. So I just had to put it aside. I did a little bit. I think I started a school for a while, but then it just became too much. So I just had to cut it out and just focus on psychology.
Oh, I can,
But
yeah.
most of my stuff comes from the early part. So yeah, it's there.
Mm, I can really relate that it's, what did you say, all consuming
Mhm. Yes,
astrology.
it can be.
It
Mm.
really can be because there is so much there. And And so you say you couldn't use it when you worked as a psychologist. Is that because you were not allowed to, or you didn't feel it was appropriate, or
Not allowed to.
okay.
Not allowed to. Psychologists do psychology. They they don't do anything else. So I had to bite my tongue and just knuckle down, and that's what I did. I
And
still gathered data.
yeah.
I have quite a database, but as for the practice of astrology, no.
Mm, yeah, I could imagine you can use it like that. But so did you retire in order to do this thing that you're doing now, teaching the world about mysticism? Is that how it was, or did you retire and then you came up with this idea?
So I wrote the psychological astrology and the 12 houses, I think in 2015. So I was starting to get a, a, a flash of insight, so to speak, to start doing astrology, but I was still practicing. So I practiced up till the end of 2017. So I was playing with astrology, but I didn't bring it into the therapy room. So when I retired, I basically I was run down. I was exhausted. I needed a break, and then I slowly went back into astrology. So I think I wrote, well, the I think 19 2018, 2019, 2020, I think I wrote nearly all my books. So it was a very creative period. And well, here I am today. I'm still doing it,
Yeah.
still writing.
Yeah. You got more books in you?
I've still got a few more books, yes.
Wow. Wow.
I'm doing one right now, and it's come to a stage where I've got to edit it. There's probably more I can put into it, but I'll see how I go. So hopefully by we said this is August. I went there September,
Yeah.
October, probably another 2 or 3 months. I'll have it ready. I'm working very slowly.
Yeah. Well, can I say that you have your moon in Virgo, so the editing must be really
Oh, it's
high.
well, that I'd like to think so, but I've learned how to edit, and really with my editing with my voice is important. So I have a writing style that is very personable,
Yeah,
um, and that's how I have to edit as well. So I've had to learn how to edit.
I see.
So now I
See.
don't use editors.
So I want to ask you about tarot, just because I've had courses in it and I use it for personal, but I don't use it with clients. I don't feel proficient in it at all. So um, just a little quiz here that might teach me something. Might teach us all something. I have two questions for you. Let's do the first one is what tarot card is mostly related to healing, do you think? What's your favorite for working with healing,
the
restoration, rehabilitation?
So that's a question that I've asked myself as well, and it was a question that you put down to me. I think it's the hermit. The hermit being he closes off to the world, so there's no distractions, and he is focused.
Mm,
And there he can go within. So of all the cards, I'd probably be more inclined to use the hermit. But
mm.
basically, the major arcana, they're almost all healing cards of one denomination. Oh,
There he is,
there
right?
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, very good.
the hermit. Oh, so you were saying all the major arcanas are.
They can heal in their own right. You've got uh, here we go. I'll better get out the yeah. So for instance, the magician, he can put the magician up there. He can do as much healing as all the others, but it's his type of healing is different to what the others will do. So they all have very narrow bands of speciality. That's probably the best word to use for them.
And so when you talk about the major arcanas, I I can get a little disappointed when I only draw cards from the minor arcana. So before our conversation, I drew a card on, how is this gonna be? And then how can I best prepare myself for something like that? How should I be in this interview? And I drew two minor arcana, so I'd like your help to interpret it.
Okay,
Uh,
yes, shoot.
the, the first one was Five of Swords.
Five of Swords. Okay, that's a mix of a winner, but also of a little bit of a cheat. So he's won the battle and gained the sword, so he's got his reward. But did he do it sleight of hand? Did he do it a little bit underhanded? So it's always a question with those.
How do you
So
mean underhanded?
it'll
What do
be
you mean?
so what so underhanded is a little bit uh, squeezing the juice out of an orange. You're
Mm,
squeezing. So that's probably what I'm going to feel. You squeezing me. But
yeah,
it's a win. It's a winner card. That's the main thing. That's the main focus of it. But if you
okay,
want to, you can go a little bit to the other side of them.
right. Yeah, because it always has more meanings. That's the thing.
Yes,
like astrology, of course.
like
Mm,
astrology.
and then how to relate to this into being this into I drew Three of Cups.
Three of Cups is celebration.
Yeah,
That's a very clear one. That
yeah,
is a
right.
good one to get. Yeah.
Yes.
So one of them is you're working. So the swords are an intellectual suit.
Yeah.
They are the air suit. And you are, so what it's saying is you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have
Mm,
to celebrate. You're going to have to be asking the right questions, and you've got to be a little bit malleable, but you'll get there. So I think that's a very good card to get.
okay. Perfect. And then celebrate.
And
Good.
then celebrate.
Okay. Well, it fits so far, at least, I think. So now let's get to the really juicy part for me, at least. There's many juicy parts about what you do, and I'm definitely gonna be taking as much as I
You're going
can.
to be squeezing the juice out of me.
Raising the juice. But the thing that really intrigued me is that diagnosis in the chat, because I like to do that as well with clients who are suffering, people who are suffering. Um, and always we know that when there's a diagnosis, this can be turned around to like a great wealth of creativity or whatever it stands for, but something very resourceful. Of course, that's important to remember. But just the concept of I can actually see you're suffering in the chat. How do you work with that? Tell me more about that.
Okay, so that's what I'm writing about now, actually. So it's anything that's in the first house is very important. So the first house shines brightly to me. So I look very closely at the first house, and the lord of the chart, the ruler of the ascendant, the what signs and houses that any archetype is in there. So that's the first clue. The second clue is sun and moon. So when the sun and moon are conjunct or opposite Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Chiron, or Saturn, they're going to be putting pressure on the client. So the key words are conflict. So when you're in conflict, it will be reflected in the astrology chart. So I got that from Stephen Arroyo and Liz Green way back in the 80s. And I've followed it up, and it's like, bingo.
Mm.
That's what I needed. So that's what I've run with, and it's not left me standing there with my mouth open. I can see it in the chart now. But the important thing is everybody's got those charts. There's always going to be Saturn conjunct Moon, Saturn opposite Sun, the Pluto in the first house, or applying from the 12th. So there we have a conflict within ourselves as astrologers that we've got to interpret it according to where that person is. So then we need to look at the transits to see what's kicking off there. So it sounds easy, but it's not.
Mm.
Now I got that, even though I read Liz Green and Stephen Arroyo and picked it up there. It's when I did the data analysis of all the astrology charts that I had. So, as a teacher, that's my first career was teaching. I collected data. I didn't know what I was doing, but I collected data. Then I left teaching and did psychology. So what I did was during those first couple of years is like I analyzed it to death until it hits me. Now I know what to look for. Now I'm still probably 75%, give or take, but um, you can be pretty accurate with what you've got. But there's always that little disclaimer that there's other people that are doing fine that have the same chart. So it's the psychological. So biologically, they got the same genes. Oh, they haven't got the same genes.
Mm.
Then socially, which is what people are telling them, like when they're children. So their parents, their siblings, school teachers, people at school. And then there's the psychological, which is their makeup. So even though astrology has all three, we still haven't got the ability to embrace all of it. There's, you'd have to live 3 or 4 lifetimes to work it out.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, that's really excellent to remember that biosocial psychology, psychology, because we don't know who it is. We don't know what, as you said, what family did you grow up in, and because these symbols can have so many meanings,
They
and
can.
you can be equipped to handle it in different ways.
Yeah. So the best thing to do is to ask your client. Just
Yeah.
ask them, what was your childhood like? And they'll quite happily tell you.
Mm.
It's only those clients that come to you because someone's pushed them. They don't really want to be there. They're the ones that are going to fight. They just won't say anything. But most people that come to you will be free and open, and you just need to ask the right questions.
Yeah. So, but can you give a few examples of what it could be? When you give the example of Pluto in the first house, does that have certain
Oh,
connotations?
okay. So Pluto in the first house, that person is very intense. Now they might not know it, but you can see the intensity there. They nearly all have a level of intensity, and that the conflict that Pluto brings. Now that could be a Pluto in the 12th applying to the ascendant, or applying to the cusp of the first house, or it could be Pluto in the first house. And of all the planets, Pluto is probably the hardest to live with.
Mm.
Pluto and Chiron. I'd probably throw Chiron in there as well.
Mhm.
He's a bit of a hard dude. So if you want to, I can get some charts and show you.
Yeah, because I'm curious how it's hard, how it's, um, what kind of diagnosis it potentially could amount in.
Ooh, could amount to anything. Okay, now you're going to have to let me share your,
So
okay.
we have the chart here. How about that? Do you see it?
Yeah, there it is. Okay,
Good.
it's today's chart, but and also for the time, which is really, really good for us. So what it has is it has Pluto on the cusp of the first house. Now that in itself, it's so close that it's even though it's retrograde, it is still applying to the first house. So that's going to have a sting. It's going to make that person, they're not going to be outwardly plutonic, they're going to be more inwardly. So they're going to be a lot quieter, and they're going to internalize it because it's in the 12th. The 12th house is a silent house. It's a very quiet house. It's the hidden house. So planets that are sitting in there, they've sort of done a whole circuit of the astrology chart, and they've finally made it, and they just want to rest. They've done 12 houses and they are exhausted. So Pluto is exhausted, but he's still Pluto. He's
Mm.
still there. So he's going to act in a very subtle way. Now we have Pluto heavily trined. We've got the grand trine, which is beautiful, but doesn't really form a kite. It's also got a square to Chiron. That's a hard one. And it's got a sextile to Neptune. So forming the grand trine is Uranus and Venus. So there's a grand trine. And there's also a finger of fate, which is quincunx from the moon to Pluto and from Mars to Pluto. That's called a yod, or a finger of fate.
Mm.
And it's on again, off again. So it builds up pressure, builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up, and then it's released, and you feel good. Then something will come along and annoy you, and then it starts to build up again and build up again, and then it's released again. So yods are not bad all the time. They're a little bit bad some of the time. Because it's Pluto, I'd probably not I wouldn't be pushing him.
So when
So
you talk about tension and release, is that because of Pluto?
that's because of the yod. So if you
Okay.
see a yod, which is it's a focal, it always has a focus, and this one's on Pluto from Mars and
Mhm.
from the moon, and because it involves the moon, it's a little bit emotional because it's by Mars, a little bit of anger or a little bit of edginess.
Mm.
So Mars and Pluto together can indicate a bully. Someone's bullied you, or you're a bully.
Mm.
Generally, it's being bullied.
Mhm.
So Pluto conjunction, where the two of them together, there's probably been some bullying somewhere in their lives. And the same with an opposition. There's probably been some real bullying.
Mm.
But a square or a trine, it just doesn't have the impact. Squares and trines are nice, but they don't have the impact of a conjunction or an opposition. Okay, so
Okay.
conjunction and opposition would be 100%. These guys would be about 70%. Then you've got the sextile and the quincunx, and they're like 40%. So we have that as the first conflict is there. Then we look up and we have the moon and the sun conjunct. Now it's 10-degree orb. Well, I give my sun and moon 15 degrees orb. It's probably, some people would consider it a wide orb, but these are luminaries, and the moon will conjunct the sun in 12 degrees, which is like a day. So yeah, so that's a conjunction, and sun moon conjunction, they're sometimes easy and sometimes hard. So it gives the person insight, and sometimes a lack of insight. Generally, more so that they get the insight, but it's not always visible with them. And
Mm.
then we have what do we have here? We've got Chiron. Chiron's got a nice trine to the moon, got a nice trine to Mercury. It has the square to Pluto, so that's a little bit hard. That square to Pluto, yeah, it's one you don't want. So
So if you saw that in you called it the constitutional makeup of someone, if you saw that in the natal chart, let's say Chiron square Pluto, what would that, what could that be?
So when I look at a chart, you just got to remember that it's the whole chart. They are reflecting their whole chart. That's their psyche, is the whole chart. So when you tease out Sun square Pluto, they might not recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
They might not. They might go, "Oh, I'm not angry. I'm not an angry person," and you go, "Ew." It's not easy, but
Mm-hmm.
they could be very abrupt. They could be, a little bit aggressive. So, yeah. So what you would do, it'd be you'd try and synthesize it and flow. It's not an easy thing, because some people will bite you if you say the wrong thing. They will get a little bit snappy.
But so what I'm also curious about is your psychological background. How would you work with what does that inform you about
Okay.
in terms
So
of the
that chart. Okay.
approach?
So first of all, looking at the whole chart, that's got a nice grand trine. So there's the Pluto, Venus, and Uranus, which is nice. That's an easy flow of energy. The energy flows nicely for them. But it's also got the quincunx from the moon and from Mars onto Pluto. That can set the person up every now and again to make wrong decisions. So you could probably say, there's times when you've got to stop what you're doing, and you've got to sit quietly with yourself, and you've got to think about the decision. Don't make snap decisions. you should see my chart. Oh my God, it'll blow you away. I have Pluto conjunct Sun, Mars, Venus, and Jupiter. That's a big knot of planets. And it's been a struggle to live with that,
Mhm.
but I think I'm coping.
I mean, you've
Yeah.
made the most of it because then that's the upper version or the higher version of it would be to dive deep
Yes.
into, for example, these kind of esoteric themes.
Yeah. That's actually what I've done.
Yeah.
I had to. So I back in 1980 it was. I saw a fellow doing Tai Chi at. I think I was doing my second year in my second year in teaching. And I saw a guy doing some Tai Chi, and I went up to him and said, "What are you doing?" Like, I'd never seen anything like this before. And he said, "I'm doing Tai Chi." And he started telling me a little bit about it. And I was like, I got to know more. So I harassed him, so to speak. And then I went along to his teacher's class, which was Simon Lim, who he was teaching, and I went along to his classes of a night time and started doing Tai Chi. So I did Tai Chi with Simon from 1980 to 1988, at which time I moved down the south coast of New South Wales for teaching. So
Wow. So, okay, so Tai Chi was the beginning for you in these kind of.
Tai Chi, yeah. So while I was still in New South Wales, I did the Tai Chi, and after 6 months, I started to leave my body. I didn't know what it was, scared me.
To leave your body?
Mm, yeah, yeah.
Okay. How so?
So just would just roll out of my body, and then I would be in whatever I was doing. Like sometimes I would be in a dream flying. Another time I would be at a castle, or I would be, yeah, it could be anywhere. But
Mm,
I would, it's, you will know if you're having an outer body. It it is just supreme. It is supreme.
mm.
So that saved me from going down the line of misery, because Pluto conjunct Sun conjunct Mars conjunct Venus conjunct Jupiter can be very miserable. So that got me onto wanting to know more about life, about death. That's what Pluto does. Pluto is it's not the only planet, but it brings the person to a focus of what is the meaning of life? Why do we live as we do? What happens when we die? And that's the ultimate question for us.
Because you're talking about leaving your body and having dreams about flying and just I'm curious but to know more about that. And also because at the time were you also a psychotherapist?
I was I I was taking clients on to do hypnotherapy probably from 88, I think.
Okay.
Because I 88 moved down to the south coast and then started my practices there. So I was practicing as a clinical hypnotherapist and getting into astrology and psychotherapy
So
and
you were not in that whole psychiatric language yet, but did you at some point
mm,
think about what had happened as a dissociation and how do you know the difference between an kind of unhealthy dissociation and a spiritual supreme experience?
so leaving your body is a fairly unique thing. So I go to sleep and I wake up in a dream. I wake up somewhere. Okay, so that's a unique experience, and anyone that talks about doing that, I know what they're talking about.
Mm.
But people trying to do it when they're awake, that becomes questionable whether they're having a real experience. So I would ask questions, I would probe and find out what's happening. But people do. But most of it is when they cross over. So you've got to actually be asleep to do most of that sort of stuff. You've got to close your eyes and go into the hypnagogic state, which means you've got to drop between the barrier of a conscious and unconscious. And there's the line there. And you've got to drop into it. And I've done it a couple of times. I'm not real good at it, but yeah, I can do it when I'm asleep.
Okay, but so what you were saying before is it happened just spontaneously, and what you're saying now is that you're not good at making it happen. Is that how it is?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
making it happen is hard. So
Um,
I'd rather do it when I'm asleep. It's a lot easier. Mm.
okay, so it's easy for you when you're asleep.
It's easier when you're asleep, but
Mm.
you have to train yourself. So I'm a meditator. Um, so meditation is very important. Generating chi, life force, like energy, is important. And when those two things are lined up, and you go to bed, then you are so relaxed that it's a lot easier to leave your body.
Is this what you call Taoist alchemy, or what is Taoist alchemy?
Yep. Taoist alchemy is mostly that. Yeah. So Taoists, they don't have a religion. They don't believe in gods or spirits or anything like that. They just work. So the work is meditating, or they do Tai Chi, or they do a martial art, but their form is a Taoist form. So even just breathing is Qigong. So
Mm.
you breathe in and out and you're breathing Qi. So, yeah, Taoist alchemy is along that line.
Mm. So the alchemy is when you say it's also just breathing, it's
It's,
inhaling something, exhaling it to the world, inhaling from the world again. Is that what you mean about alchemy?
yep,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Um, so it's still going on with the squeezing your juice, if you can feel that.
That's
I want
good.
want to know everything. But so maybe a little bit more about the what you call constitutional makeup, and you were also talking about when you stopped working that you had some stress signals. And how do you see that in a chart? The indications of stress in the chart.
Stress in a chart is conflict. So whenever we have these conflict points, so we got sun and moon, we like to think of the sun and moon as being they're good guys. You know, they're the two luminaries. Now that means everything because without the sun and moon, well, there's no light and there's no life. But the sun and the moon is mother and father. So it is they are the most important planets. Although in astrology, not so. They're just parts of the chart. They're just parts of the chart. But in psychotherapy, the sun and moon, they're generalists. So you can take them with you into your meditation and you can use them. And they will help you, they will support you. You can take Pluto, but he's a specialist.
Mm.
You can take Uranus, but he specializes in one or two things. Sun and Moon, they're generalists,
It's
so they
like
can
what
do
you
lots of things.
it's like what you said about the tarot card, right? Actually, the different
Yeah,
major arcanas, they're
yeah,
specialists in something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But then sun and moon, they do it all in a way, or they're the way that I tend to talk about is it that they're our primary filters. The moon is like
Yes,
our emotional filter, and the sun is our whole purpose and identity. So it's pretty big.
yes, yeah.
Okay, but sorry, I was interrupting you. You were saying something more. The sun and moon signatures
Um,
of stress you were talking about.
Was I talking about something?
I
I
think
can't remember what I was talking
I think
about.
I interrupted you there. It was about how do we view, how do we see when stress is coming up and something
Ah,
happening?
okay. So first of all, we've got Sun and Moon. We've got Pluto. There's conflict there. There's conflict with well, with the ascendant. The ascendant ruler is Uranus. So the lord of the chart is Uranus. Uranus plays a large role in this person's astrology chart. So we have to look at what he's doing, and we see that he's part of the grand trine, but he's also square Mercury and square Moon. So there's a little bit of stress there. So we're looking at the harder aspects, the quincunx from Moon and Mars. There's a bit of conflict there, a bit of stress. There's stress with Saturn. There's stress with Neptune. The North Node has particular stress because of the Venus. And I just recognized that there's actually a kite. I was looking over here for the kite, but yeah, so there is a kite. So there's those two sextiles that are joining. So the opposite of that is Venus. So Venus is the focal planet of that pattern called a kite. So is there conflict there? Well, it's opposite Neptune. So
Mm.
anything that Neptune has to do is it's a sense of loneliness, a sense of being abandoned, sense of being betrayed. So Neptune is a little bit dangerous in a chart. He's hard to see, he's hard to fathom, and poor old Venus, which would be relationships for this person, would be challenging.
Mm.
It's a water planet, so it affects our emotions. So Neptune is water, emotions. Pluto is water, emotions, but with a sting. What else? And the moon. Moon's not so bad, but yeah, she's heavily aspected.
So,
So if you want to find stress in a chart, you look for the conflict.
okay,
Boom, and this one has a lot of it.
okay, like that. So, but so what was it for you, if I may ask? What significators, what transits were happening so that you would feel a pressure to release?
For me in my chart,
Yeah, when you were considering retiring because you were stressed out.
good grief. Yeah, so I had Jupiter crossing Saturn in my natal chart. Jupiter and Saturn are square, so they're square.
All right.
So Jupiter is square Saturn, and they're a little bit argy bargy. They get in a bit of conflict, just the two of them, and Saturn always wins because
Mm.
Saturn's the senior one, and he's a bit of a bully. I have to talk to him. So anyway, so whenever they conjunct or are opposite in transit, so either Saturn is transiting or Jupiter is transiting, something happens. And so this is Jupiter is coming up to transit by Saturn there. Saturn himself has moved down to conjunct my North Node, and Pluto is applying to my ascendant. It still has another year, I think, or a couple of years to go, but um,
You felt it. You felt it. It's a big one, Pluto on your.
yeah, well, yes, yes. Anything to do with Pluto
Yeah.
knocks me for six.
Then what are the indications of the astrological signifiers of how to relax then? So there's the stressing, the challenging, then what about the release? How does that look?
I'm trying to think of any transits that would come in here that would put the person at ease, but see, they all each transit energizes. Saturn coming into a chart will depress the person in that area of their life. Neptune will confuse them. They'll be like uncomfortably confused. Maybe Mercury, but it's there for one day and then it moves on to the next degree, then the next degree, and the next degree. So it's very fast. Venus, it travels 1 degree per day. So it's very quick. sun. It doesn't, they don't really lend themselves to being pacifiers. So you would be relying on them as a whole to talk to them, to say, well, you've got to take this bull by the horns. You've got to take the challenge of that Chiron or Uranus or Pluto or whatever their transit is. You've got to embrace it. And then you would give them tools on how to do that.
I mean,
So
it's
it's,
I
sorry?
think it's really important what you're saying, because and that's a big part of why I love the combination of psychology and astrology, because we have to think, okay, this is what the planets are doing now. How is that person gonna play it out? For example, in my chart, I don't have any Earth. If I mean, you can obviously you can put in Sirius and stuff like that, and then it adds up, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
you would have it. It's that Earth low chart. And so there are certain things that you would not maybe expect if you only to look at the planets. But if you think about the psychology of a person like that, then you'll know that this person has to compensate big time for some of that water, for example. Like you have to compensate for that. And
Yes,
so it's so important to think,
you've got a lot of fire there as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so
yeah,
yours is inspirational, fiery energy, but it's tempered by the water, by your Pisces sun. And you've got Venus and Jupiter there. They're in the 8th house, though. So
yeah.
that is the house of conflict. You're in the house of conflict there with your Venus, your Jupiter, and your sun. But they have taken it as learning.
Mm.
We're on planet Earth to learn, to suck in experiences and learn from them. So uh, yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely where it takes you deep, if unless you want to stay in a very low place, right? Then you gotta go deep and you gotta turn it around. And
yeah,
then, but like you see, I think about, for example, being on time. It's very important to me, and it's making me a lot more anxious than than I think other people, right? Is who has an easier time with being um, being organized. So sometimes it just yeah, we compensate for weaknesses.
yeah. We accommodate that. So when a person comes for therapy, they will, and if they're always running late, then you would put a bit of pressure on them to turn up on time. So people can adapt. They
Yeah,
can learn. That they can they can follow instructions.
I
But
definitely have had clients with that. What will you say about that? Clients with just an immense Gemini, just immense mutable. And actually, one of the complaint in therapy would be, I don't like this life where I have to be in a certain place at a certain time. I want to be free. What do you say for a client like that? When you can see in the chat, well, yeah, I can see that a life in just free flow would suit you better.
so you would just say, free yourself. You would that's probably the best advice, is just, okay, well, that's your goal, work towards it. How would you set up your day? What would you do in the morning? What would you do? Da, da, da. So you would, there's um I can't remember the term for it, but it's like a social register. When I taught special ed, we would use photographs. So if the student couldn't talk or was disabled in some way, then photographs of, here you are having breakfast. Here's a picture of you getting ready for school. Here's a picture of you playing with your toys. Okay, so you would walk them through each activity one by one, and then they would get it, hopefully.
Mm. Yeah, so there could be some retraining there. But I mean, if you can
Yeah.
see that, I think that is a big resource in therapies, where you can see on the natal chart, who is this person, where is their life journey going, and what have they been through. You can see you can get indications of many of those explanations in the background. But then if you see that probably this person is not going to fit into an ordinary job, and yet this person
Mm.
has to be in an ordinary job, then what would you say?
That's a big question, actually. Nearly every client you get doesn't want to work. You would just walk them through what are your options.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a car, you've got a house that you're paying off, you've got a wife, you have children, so they're trapped. So
Right.
you would talk around the picture. Okay, what are the options that you have? What can't you do? What can you do? What do you control? What do you not control?
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly wind down until eventually you come to the center of the circle. So the person has to have input, and it's not immediate. They're not going to step out of your office and start a new life. Those things only happen on TV. Reality is that they will step out of your office questioning,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. Now, if they're smart, they will come back to you and get tips. And with a bit of luck, they will embrace that and follow, whatever it is that you've organized for them. So, you're thinking long term. People that are trapped, and you can see it with with the transits. You can see Saturn applying, or Jupiter doing his thing, and you can say, well, for the next 3 months, you're going to be under the hammer. That's just the nature of the universe. Put up with it. But in the meantime, when you come home, you kiss your husband or your wife and the children, and then you go and meditate for half an hour. That's going to be what saves you, is just a quiet time. And then when you come out of the bedroom, then you're going to feel really good,
Mm-hmm.
but it's for 3 months or 6 months or 1 month, whatever the time span of the planet is. So
Right. Meditation, but that's always a good one.
meditation is my go-to all the time. Everything is meditation.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop the sharing here. Whoop.
Mhm.
And
Hey,
hey, changing the camera. I have a few more questions. We don't have a
yeah.
lot of time, so let's see how much. But I wanted to ask you about in your book, Musings Along the Mystic Path, where you talk about our inner dragon. I was
Oh
saying,
my
that's what
God.
it is. Yeah.
So the mystic path is anybody that is looking under the rocks, anyone that wants to know the reason for whatever. It, the mystic is the questioner. They're always asking questions, but they're questions that we would ask. They're questions about the meaning of life questions.
Yeah.
So the inner dragon is the conflict that we have within ourselves. Now, that came about when I had a client. He was tormented with this imagery, and every night he would dream it, and he would wake up feeling terrible. And it was just a constant struggle for him to survive. And he said something about a demon or a dragon. It must have been a dragon. Aha, a dragon. That makes sense. So got him to imagine that this was a dragon and to confront it. Um, in my self-hypnosis book, I think I've written a story about the dragon, and there's a couple of stories there of a particular client that I had. It was it's a very sad story. In fact, he was raised by his father and abused. His father was raised by his father, who was a Nazi, who belonged to the SS
Um,
and was like quite high up. And he used to thrash his son to within an inch of his life basically every day. So when the son grew up and became a father, he did the same thing to his son. So he, at 14, I think it was 14, he got the courage to fight back, and he left home and joined a bikie gang and was the enforcer. He would go around bashing people. That's what you do as an enforcer. You enforce the law. But then he met a pretty young girl and he fell in love, and he left the enforcing behind and got a job and had 2 beautiful children, which I counseled as well. But then one day he came to see me, and I thought he was a normal person. I thought everything was fine with him. But when he told me his story of the abuse that he'd received from his father, it was like, this is not normal. So he had he could see it like on the edge of the peripheral view, like at the sort of his face, side of his head, he would see it. So it was a demon. So we did a lot of hypnotherapy, like a lot of eyes closed, doing some work. But after about 2 or 3 sessions, he 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 went into his inner world and he tried to tidy it up. But when he came back the next day, he went inside, and his inner self had destroyed his inner world. It was like trashed, and he couldn't cope with that. It was traumatic. So I thought we've got problems here. We've got to fix this up. So I got him to have a meeting with him and the demon, and he was like not very happy. He was terrified, but he did meet with the demon, and they agreed to have a fight. So the next time he came to me, he was very nervous, and he closed his eyes and went deeper and deeper and deeper and went to fight the demon. So when he came back, he'd met the demon, and the demon was in a suit, met him at the coffee shop where he came from, which is in Melbourne, and sat down and said, I'm here. And from then he changed. It's it's different, but that's what happens when you have the courage to confront your inner demon. You can turn it around. So the demon became an ally for him,
Right.
and
So
then everything in his life changed. His wife didn't threaten to throw him out. He changed jobs, and well, I don't know. I lost contact with him after that, but yeah, I
right.
heard that
Oh,
he was
sorry.
doing well.
I mean, because what I was questioning in my mind, I think you just answered it there. But my question was it an outside entity that was in him, or was it your inner demon, where it's more like your shadow? You're also into Jungian psychotherapy, like confronting the shadow type of stuff, or was it more of an exorcism? But I think it's more the latter part, right? It's your inner.
I think it's inner, yes,
Yeah.
but I'm not certain on that. I
Okay.
don't really know. I've done it many times, but the closest is your own, because it's formed from something way, way, way back in your past. So possibly, yeah,
Possibly to both, or what?
possibly to both.
Yeah.
Possibly it's your own, but
Yeah.
it could be for some people. It could be external. I don't know yet.
Okay.
Maybe one day I will find out. Maybe I'll die and find out. I don't know.
But isn't it interesting that there can be some part of ourselves that are so dangerous, so scary, so frightening to us?
Yeah, the fact that he could tell his story told me that he was okay, But
Mhm.
obviously there were things that happened in his life, in his early life, that were not okay, that he
Mhm.
might have forgotten all about.
So there might have been some
Yeah.
fragmentation. Yeah. Okay. Okay, this is not that you want to go fast about, like, this is deep stuff. Um, okay, I think just a last question where we could round the tarot archetypes again. Um, when you talk about the mystic journey, what is that for you? And do you see the mystic journey in the tarot card as well, telling a story about what we all
Yeah.
go through?
Yep. So the tarot story, according to A.E. Waite, who wrote the pictorial book of tarot back in 1911, his journey was with Golden Dawn Magical School back in the 1890 something or other to 1900 something or other.
Yeah.
So he has a long history of esoteric wisdom, and what he wanted to do was project the major arcana as a journey.
Is it the journey that we're on per definition? Like, is it a universal journey? Is that how you see it, or you see it as a choice?
Um, the a mystic is someone that asks questions, like I was saying before.
Okay.
Okay, anyone that asks, what is this about, is taking the first step. Now, whether they take the second step and
Mm,
the third and the fourth is up to them.
right.
But the people that come for me for counseling or for astrology readings, um, they're on a journey,
Mm.
and I just, it's easier for me to say mystic than to say client,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because they just keep on wanting to learn, wanting to know more, and it might be the first, second, and third step, then the fourth step, and then eventually they might get there.
Mm. It's a now we've spoken a lot about Pluto today. It's a Plutonian journey as well, right?
Yeah,
What do you say?
yeah, yeah.
Mm? Okay.
To go within, yes,
Yeah.
very much so. I
Mm.
can't help that.
Yeah.
That's the way I've got
Yeah.
all my planets up there in the eight, and they're in the eighth house.
Yes, I
So,
love it. I love it because
mm,
it's good inspiration for when you don't know what to do with that Plutonian powerlessness, and then you see someone really rising to power, really empowering themselves through what is hidden, through the taboo, through secrets.
very good. Yes, just like you're doing.
It is what I'm doing. Yeah,
Mm,
I was amazed to see our charts together. That's Yeah. So you're definitely such an inspiration, Noel Eastwood, and thank you for so much out there. I only listened to a few of your. I think I listened to all of them, all of your audiobooks where it says something with astrology, but I'm definitely going to go through the tarot one as well to learn more about that.
the tarot.
Yes.
Ta-da.
Ta-da!
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that's a
good.
good book. The first one is a ripper.
It's a ripper.
Um, it's a ripper. Yes, well, we can do this again at any
I'd love
time. So,
to. I love.
it would be an honor
Thank you
to
so
talk
much,
with you.
Noel. Thank you so much for now.
Okay.
Till we meet again, have a
Till we
wonderful
meet
time.
again.